And what is the debate that we're having right now? It's over whether or not America itself is legitimate. Whether or not, from its foundation, America should even be recognized as legitimate. That's the debate that we're having right now. That has been pushed into the mainstream. And I think, in small examples like with the kneeling for the national anthem and the Colin Kaepernick and the American flag and all that kind of stuff. Well, what is that fundamentally about? It's about whether or not America is even legitimate as a nation and as a country that tries to ascribe to the principles of life, liberty, and property. Hello everyone, my name is JD.
And this is Logan.
And this is the WireTap, brought to you by the Conservative Wire. In case if you haven't noticed, we got some new camera equipment. Bought the Canon Rebel SL2 for my face cam. I gave Logan my old camera that I was using. We did away with the webcam. We have no use for it anymore unless we do some crazy creative shots or something, like a pan from out here or something. I don't know. But we really have no use for it, but we've upgraded our equipment. Hope that it looks better, and thank you so much for joining us today. There's been a lot of negativity in the news lately, so we're recording here on Labor Day, and we want to just kind of take a break from that and look at something a little less consequential. We've had a shooting, we've had hurricane, so we just kind of want to take a break. And pardon me, I've been a little under the weather. My voice and my sinuses really haven't been up to snuff. But this is a piece from ENM News about Joe Biden, and it basically details how Joe Biden, he was asked at a campaign event in Pearl, Iowa, why he wants to be president. And this is his answer. This is his reasoning for as to why he's running for president. I think it's really, really, really important that Donald Trump not be reelected. He then launches into his laundry list of reasons as to why he finds Donald Trump so distasteful. That's his reasoning. That's why he's running for president. That's his platform for his campaign. Is he does not want to see Donald Trump reelected again. He goes on to say, could I die happily not having heard Hail to the Chief play for me? Yeah, I could, he said. That's not why I'm running. He really doesn't ever come up with a tangible reason as to why they're running. Now, all of the candidates are running an anti-Trump platform.
Yeah.
But that's to appeal to their primary voters. Whenever you get out into the general election, you're going to need to move beyond orange man bad. You're going to have to move beyond Trump is bad, so vote for me. That will work great with your voters in the primary.
And it's true in a way, because what have we seen from Joe Biden so far in his campaign?
Yeah.
Anti-Trump. That's every single one of his commercials. I can't even name one of his plans or a specific detail.
Other than revamping Obamacare.
I know he has some. I mean, you have to release those, I guess, on the campaign trail.
Other than revamping Obamacare, I honestly couldn't tell you what one proposal of Joe Biden's is.
Exactly. You have Warren and Sanders and everybody else churning out these crazy proposals. They're insane ideas. But I mean, Medicare for all. Oh, that's Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren. I don't know. Wall Street bad.
I guess, yeah. I mean, Wall Street bad's something. She would probably, out of all of them, in my mind, be the most likely to put something out similar to the Green New Deal. Which Bernie Sanders, I think, has he not here just within the last week or so come out with something similar or some sort of endorsement for it?
Yeah, they've all of the candidates that are still there have released their climate plan.
I mean, outside of, what was his name? Who's the big climate guy? That's like his whole whole platform.
Jay Inslee?
Yeah, Jay Inslee.
Is he still in the race?
I honestly
These last 2 weeks,
I honestly don't know.
These last 2 weeks, a lot of them have dropped out. Breaking news, Kirsten Gillibrand is no longer in the race.
I don't know who my primary vote's going for anymore. I mean, you have such a long gap now from debate to debate, the next debate.
The next debate is a few weeks from now. It's on ABC.
Yeah. I mean, there's such a big gap. As you had two of them right there with each other within, like, the same, month?
Same month, I'd say.
It was, like, within the same 3 or 4 week span. Now you have such a long gap, and the requirements are upped, so you actually can't be polling -2 like, some
Bill de Blasio.
Yeah, Bill de Blasio was. You actually have to have some support. You have to have some money. So
Bill de Blasio was so desperate for attention, he actually went on for an hour with Sean Hannity.
It was actually an interesting exchange that they had whenever Hannity did that. But now that you actually have requirements, now that you actually have a hurdle to jump, you're going to see a lot of these people dropping out before they just can't make it, and then their campaign is essentially dead at that point. Because
they're just wasting money.
Because, here's what they tell you in marketing, and I mean, it's really true, but I mean, it applies here. Attention is oxygen. If you don't have attention, you ain't living, so to speak. If you don't have attention, you're dead in terms of your campaign. And that's why you're seeing this stuff with, like, Beto O'Rourke, to where, he
changes tires.
No, to where he's trying to go the, like, Ocasio-Cortez route, to where he's doing all this kind of stuff on Twitter and Instagram, to where it's like, Beto makes a burger. Not joking. That was legitimately a tweet that I saw. It was like, Beto makes a burger. And I love comments on this kind of crap, because he makes this burger in, like, the most stupid fashion I've ever seen in my life. And people are like, clearly Beto has never made a burger before this, though. But it's that kind of crap, because that's what Ocasio-Cortez does. She does these live streams on Instagram, and she'll be in her kitchen making, kale barf salads or something. And Beto's trying to do the same thing. And he has had this in the last couple of days with this shooting, to where he went on, I think it was CNN. It's one of the news networks, and he dropped the F-bomb because it was actually in reference that segment that he was on addressing the comment that he had made before, to where he said, this is effed up. And then he went on air on CNN and dropped an F-bomb live on air. So ultimately the point there is that that's to get attention. These people are all trying to get attention because they need something. They're so devoid of ideas, like Joe Biden. And Joe Biden just so happens to be the front runner because he was the vice president to the last Democratic president. But all these people are just trying to get attention so that way they can make the next debate and that their campaign can have some oxygen and can have some breathing room.
Yeah.
But it says a little further down, clearly other candidates have far more identifiable whys attached to their enterprises. Supporters of Miss Warren would readily point to her fight against a corrupt political system rigged in favor of moneyed interests, which you hear all the time about the big corporations and the lobbyists and the gun lobby and the breast milk lobby and the whatever lobby.
I don't know who these people are, but there's so many of them. I mean, they have to be my neighbors.
I guess there's so many lobbyists that are out to get me. There's so many lobbyists that are out there to ruin the America that I love.
They want to ruin my health care.
They want to take away the homeland, and I know Elizabeth Warren's all about that because she's Native American, and she knows what that's like.
Did you see her at one of her events? She was at a Native American event. She apologized for... Yeah. She just said, I apologize for the harm I've done.
So she still hasn't
admitted
that she is as white as a literal cracker. Like, she's literally as white as a cracker.
But, I've seen Rick Starker.
But She apologized for the harm of her native... Okay. Supporters of Mr. Sanders have been hearing his protest against the scourge of economic inequality in America for decades. Kind of the same thing. Supporters of Pete Buttigieg, the 37-year-old mayor of South Bend, Indiana, would extol him, as he does himself, as a force for the generational change that Washington begs for.
What happened to that guy?
Yeah, I mean, Buttigieg is, though, in the top contingent and will make the debate, correct? I was pretty sure he would. You're just going to start seeing the losers start to drop off, like de Blasio. Has he dropped out yet?
I don't know.
I know
Hickenlooper's gone. I think Inslee might be gone.
Yeah.
Gillibrand just dropped out.
Yeah, the guy, I honestly can't remember his name, but the guy who looked like Bill Dauterive. I don't know if he's gone
Michael
yet.
Delaney.
Yeah, that was his name. I don't know if he's gone, but you had...
I think Michael Gravel, the 88-year-old former Alaskan governor, he ended his bid. People... They didn't really know he was running, which was a shame.
He was basically the Jim Gilmore of this of this campaign. That, I tell you what, 2016 was really interesting, to where it was just like every day a new Republican was running, and then you had like Jim Gilmore, and his only debate appearance was the first Fox debate.
And
he was on the crappy like 4:00 stage.
Yeah.
And after that, I don't think you ever saw anything of him, but he hung in there for a long time.
He was like the first one to get into.
Yeah, I mean, he was in there pretty early, and he left pretty late, but he never rose above like 0.1%. I mean, he was a rounding error the entire time. But one thing that I wanted to note was here near the end. And he says, the article says, Mr. Biden insists he is not naive about how the political landscape has changed. This is not your father's Republican Party, he said last week in Rock Hill, South Carolina, something he has said many times before as his crowd's not along. The question for Mr. Biden might be whether this is, in fact, your father's Democratic Party, an entity that would have been far more amenable to what the former vice president is selling. The younger and more liberal voters flocking to rallies for Mrs. Warren and Mr. Sanders tend to have zero interest in doing business with Biden's old Republican friends. And this reflects what we talked about in our last episode, whenever the Koch brothers died. Or whenever David Koch died. That last sentence right there is really telling. These younger voters tend to have zero interest in doing business with Joe Biden's old Republican friends. These new class of liberals, what we've seen in our politics, and it's really rapid, and I think in large part it comes from Twitter. I mean, the onset of social media and how easy it is behind a wall of anonymity to have these debates and to ratchet up conflict, to ratchet up anger and resentment toward people. Because when we have arguments with people online, it doesn't just stay there most of the time. Most of the time that legitimately does tick people off for like the rest of the day or for some period of time.
Yeah.
That actually irritates them, and then that in their mind becomes what this group of people thinks. That becomes what conservatives think. That becomes what liberals think. And it further and further polarizes because people get further and further out, and they become more and more, sometimes intentionally outrageous, to try to just troll the other side and just to try to tick people off. But
it's a fun hobby.
These young liberal voters have no interest in compromise anymore. And arguably what that has done is it has pushed conservatives to the point to where they can't compromise anymore because we've gotten so far. We used to have a commonality. And what was that commonality between the left and the right? Well, that was a love for America. That was a desire to do better for America. And what is the debate that we're having right now? It's over whether or not America itself is is legitimate. Whether or not from its foundation America should even be recognized as legitimate. That's the debate that we're having right now. That has been pushed into the mainstream. And I think, in small examples like with the kneeling for the national anthem and the Colin Kaepernick and the American flag and all that kind of stuff. Well, what is that fundamentally about? It's about whether or not America is even legitimate as a nation and as a country that tries to ascribe to the principles of life, liberty, and property.
Yes.
That's what this whole thing is about. And these young liberal voters just have no interest with that anymore. And I think what it's become is these young, radical, progressive liberals, the Bernie Sanders of America and even further left, want to fundamentally transform, like Barack Obama talked about, America. And even we're seeing Barack Obama is not the most radical person in the Democratic Party anymore, which is a mind-blowing change to have happened.
Given that Barack
within the last 4 years,
he spurred the Tea Party movement in 2010. Let's get real. I mean, it was him and his election that spurred that movement in America.
Up until 2008, Barack Obama was the most progressive president, at least in modern America. I mean, if you want to talk about FDR, LBJ, Woodrow Wilson, that kind of stuff, okay, you have a legitimate argument there. But in terms of just the most open, brazen, progressive president in modern America, Obama probably is right up there near the top, if not at the top. But even Obama is not the most radical anymore within his own party. And these young liberals want to push America to a point of radical transformation. And then that leaves conservatives always on the defensive. Always on the defensive, trying to preserve and trying to say, well, look at what America is. Look at our foundations. Look at what we are supposed to stand for. And even that is perceived as illegitimate. Even that is said, this needs to be scrapped. This needs to be changed. This is, wrong fundamentally. That's what these young liberals say. And that's just where we are right now in terms of our political climate.
At least for half of the country.
And it's starting to permeate and spill over across everything.
It's fueled.
And like I said, I think it's fueled by social media, how easy it is to just intentionally tick people off whenever you're having debates or something online.
And it's fueled by the media and by social media because that's the story that's selling right now. That's what you can sell. And in addition, I'm sure there's those in the media who are just like them, just as radical, who want to push that agenda.
And I wanted to note something else. This is from CBS, and I just kind of found it interesting. Headline is, "So what? South Carolina Democrats not bothered by Joe Biden's gaffes." In the past month alone, Joe Biden has confused New Hampshire for Vermont, compared poor kids to white kids, and said he met with students from the 2018 Parkland shooting while he was vice president. He told an audience he wasn't going nuts after he failed to remember the exact location of a speech he had just given, and a story he told about awarding a war hero turned out to be not entirely true. The string of summer slip-ups would seem to reinforce Biden's gaffe-prone reputation and raise questions about his central pitch of electability. But for many voters who came to see him during a campaign swing through early voting, through the early voting state, South Carolina, the former vice president's slips of the tongue made him all the more endearing. And this is a writer from Spartanburg named Polly Iyer who says, "He hasn't always made them. I don't think he's doing anything differently than he's always done. He always has his foot in his mouth." And it goes on, and she says, "I think his heart is in the right place, and that's what we need right now. He may not be my top candidate, but I think he has the best chance of winning the Midwest, and that's crucial." Will Cockley, a general manager and South Carolina native from Charlottesville who came to a Biden rally, said, "So what? I do it too. He's human. It makes him real, not scripted." So, well, what you're seeing, almost word for word, if you took Joe Biden out of that, that's almost word for word what the right says about Trump. Or at least the base of voters who go to the Trump rallies, who voted for him in 2016. That's what so many of those voters said about Trump. In fact, I can almost guarantee you that they said something, he's human, it makes him real, he's not scripted. That specifically, the fact that he, doesn't stay on the script. He just kind of ad-libs, he improvises, he's real, he talks to you like he's having a conversation with you. And I just wanted to bring up a contrast, a current contrast, not one from way back when, from just this week. This is from the Washington Post. Hurricane Dorian, one of the Atlantic's most intense storms on record, baffles the president. And it talks about how Trump made a comment and he said, "I'm not sure I've ever heard of a Category 5. I knew it existed. I've seen some Category 4s. You don't even see them that much. But a Category 5 is something that I don't know that I've ever even heard the term, other than I know it's there. That's the ultimate, and that's what we have, unfortunately." And this whole article from the Washington Post goes on to detail how there have been 3 other hurricanes that have reached Category 5 while Trump has been in office. You've had Hurricane Michael, Maria, and Irma, I believe, is the other one. And you've had all of these. And he's, this is... Washington Post ain't the only one who's reported on this. I hate the Washington Post. But you've also had New York Times. You've had CNN, report on this. Your whole, gamut of left-wing newspapers and publications who have said this same thing and talked about, wow, Trump's really stupid. Look at him. He's had 4 of these now while he's on president and he doesn't know about Category 5. And yet, you have Joe Biden who said that poor kids can be just as good as white kids.
That's what I mean.
And that was totally overlooked.
There's quite a bit of difference between Trump's gaffes and the things that he's done, and some of them you can tell I think are intentional in a way of trolling the media, and Joe Biden's gaffes.
Yeah.
And Biden's gaffes are kind of sad to watch because honestly...
Some of them are just really bad.
Honestly, we laugh now, but down the road we could find that he might have mental deterioration. He might actually have something wrong with him. And we're seeing the beginning signs of that now.
Yeah, you never know. I don't want to go down the road of speculating, ooh, Biden's unfit for president. That kind of crap. Because they did that with, Trump. Yeah. They still are. They're like, wow, this man must have dementia. I literally saw that. Yeah. And I'm not going to do the thing like I've talked about before here on the WireTap about just what grinds my gears. What grinds my gears is whenever articles from legitimate newspapers use 4 or 5 tweets from people on Twitter, which half the time are replies to their own stories or something, to get to use that as the sample for public opinion. I hate that. But I did see tweets from people who were like, wow, he must be going crazy. Wow, he must have dementia. And I'm not going to go down that road with Joe Biden because they said that about Trump with the hurricanes. I'm not going to make excuses for this. I don't really know what has gone through Trump's head whenever he said this or anything. I'm not going to make excuses for it. I don't really know. A part of me almost thinks that if I heard the audio, it probably sounds like any other time that he speaks. To where he just talks and he just loves to fill dead air. Like he really does just love to talk and just fill dead air.
I feel
like
it was a comparison for how big this storm is. I've never heard of a storm like this before.
It's the biggest storm, it's that kind of thing. It's just like Trump speak. It's not like, oh wow, Trump's really that stupid that he doesn't know what a Category 5 hurricane is. I've went through
these NOAA records all day and I haven't been able to find a Category 5 yet.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's just interesting to note the difference between that, and I wanted to hit that before we were done. But it's just really interesting how Biden is still up there as the front runner, despite really his shaky campaign. Any other campaign, if this were a Republican campaign, and it were like flipped around, Joe Biden, from the Republican base, not from the media, I'm not talking about the media at all, but from the Republican base, he would have been cast aside.
Well, my comparison to this would be
long ago.
Would be Jeb Bush's campaign that he had.
Yeah,
because he was the figurehead.
He was the figurehead of Fox News. Loved him. He was a Bush. It seemed like that it was going to be, almost an anointing for him.
This is Jeb's year.
This is Jeb's year, and then here comes Trump, and totally derailed that train. Joe Biden really is, in a lot of ways, the Jeb Bush of the Democrat Party. But we want to thank you guys for joining us on this episode of the WireTap. We hope you enjoyed it. And make sure you follow us on YouTube and SoundCloud. And make sure you leave a like and comments down below on video ideas that you want to see in the future. Make sure you subscribe. And for Logan, I am JD. And we will see you in the next episode. Goodbye, God bless, and see you next time.